extracts for our edibles, and the best way to ensure that happens is to do it yourself. So I can talk to you about light hydrocarbon extraction. Additionally, I started giving cannabis to my community, like for real, like Rick Simpson style, like just giving cannabis to my community. And I am telling you, it cures cancer, it reverses MS, it stops seizure disorders in many cases, not in all cases. I've seen some incredible miracles with cannabis. It is an absolute miracle drug. My brother is a doctor, and I called it panacea. Is that the word I'm looking for? Panacea. Yeah, panacea. So I called it a panacea because it is. And he said, if you do that, no one will believe you. You know, like you can't say it cures everything. And I said, but it does. But it really does cure everything. So I've also used medical cannabis, seen medical cannabis help cure my son's Lyme disease, which is allegedly incurable. I cured my own gallbladder disease, which is allegedly incurable and requires surgery. I now have a gallbladder free of gallstones, thanks to cannabis and other plant medicines. And what else have I done? Like, cannabis is my girl. I started the Ganja Goddess Getaway. So if you want to talk about any of those things, I'm happy to be a resource for you. Okay, go for it. This is Gracie.
Well, that was just beautiful.
Oh my goodness. Hello, I'm Gracie. I currently run a dispensary in Vista, California. With that, I also am on a political action committee and have been for the past 2 years. We finally have a chance this year at our initiative getting passed. It's on the ballot. So we've worked really hard to get it there, and now I get to be a part of helping get everybody voting in November, or making a deal with City Council beforehand. We'll see, whichever one comes first. But what's happened is it's really gotten me involved in the politics of it in a way that I had never imagined myself getting involved in. So it has helped me understand the laws better. It's also helped me understand from a community angle how it can be very helpful and useful as a resource, not just for a collective, but just as a resource for our senior communities. And that's what I've been focusing on more directly over the last couple months, is going in and learning how to teach seniors how they can use cannabis for themselves, in hopes that some of the more private communities that currently only offer traditional medicine practices can start to use cannabis in addition to what they're already doing. So I work a lot to help people understand how to bring business and combine it with cannabis. And I am trying my best to run a dispensary in a way that would be any other business would operate, with a touch of care as their main focus. So a lot of dispensaries that you may have been to in the past, most people have unfortunately had the scary experience or the fearful experience of walking down either like a glass hallway or just seeing like bulletproof glass and talking to somebody through a microphone and there's like an armed security guard. I work really hard to negate that stereotype and to make it a more community kind of knock on your door, welcome, everybody knows your name environment, where you can bring your grandmother, even if she's not going to be partaking, and just learn about cannabis. So my passion is predominantly in education, and specifically with seniors and business. So anywho, that's a little bit about me. And if you have questions about the law, if you're confused about what does Prop 64 mean, what is recreational, why is it technically legal but not in my city, I can help address some of those concerns for you. So awesome. That's me.
Gracie.
Hi ladies, my name is Parisa Rad, aka the Marijuana Mama. I am communications director for our local Women Grow Phoenix market. along with Miss Marvina, who's our market leader. And AZ in the house. Where's all my AZ ladies? No. And I'm also a marketing consultant, so I have my MJ Mama Consulting. So if you need to outsource your social media, I'm your girl. But what really brought me into the industry and my passion is the kids, hence my name. I have I can't believe it, she's going to be 17 on Monday.
Oh,
but like
exciting.
17 years ago, most of the day, I gave birth to this child. I was only 23 weeks pregnant, and she weighed 1 pound, and she was just a true miracle to even be here. She was born blind and with cerebral palsy, unfortunately, but she lived a really healthy life, all things considered, until about 3 years ago when we found out that she had scoliosis. And then they performed a spinal fusion surgery on her, and she's got about 10 metal rods going through her back. And that wasn't even the worst of it. She developed a rare, life-threatening condition called superior mesenteric artery syndrome, which, if you can just imagine your child in like the worst possible condition, like dry heaving uncontrollably, unable to eat or drink liquids, hooked up to machines, that was basically my daughter's condition. So even though they even released her from the hospital after spending months there, she was still in terrible condition and unable to go to school and really function at all. So I was just desperate to find her some relief, and I did not want to go the pharmaceutical route because I just knew that this was bad and it had hurt her. So we found juicing cannabis, a video about it, and we were already juicing for her as it was, trying to get her to regain strength during her healing, and we got her medical marijuana card. That juicing video inspired us. I was like, oh, we don't have to give her, a joint to smoke. We can just juice it for her, and it doesn't even get you high. So I'm like, okay, I was so sold on it. So we go through the whole process, and it was very disheartening to find out how much it cost us families. Like, it's double, almost triple the cost just to carry our card, because a child requires a caregiver, and so the price is double, the fees. It's just crazy. So we found out there was just so many
Share a little
hoops.
bit about the fees, because in California we don't have fees.
Oh, okay. So in Arizona, to have a card as a patient, you basically have to pay nearly $300 because the state fee alone is $150. That's a flat fee. And then a patient has to go to a doctor, which is generally $150 fee. And a child is required 2 doctors, so that's $300 right there, plus the state fee, which is $450, plus the parent has to pay and get their fingerprints. So if you're a parent that has ever had any kind of felonies, forget it. You're gonna have to outsource the caregiver, and then you're gonna have to pay that additional fee. So we paid nearly $600 the first time around, because we didn't realize there are actually people out there and resources, which are, if you know anybody, send them my way, because I can help you. Now that I've been through it, we just renewed our card for the 3rd time this month. So she'll be a patient going on a full 2 years and some change now. So, but anyways, cannabis has changed her life remarkably. The good news is that Yazzie is going to school again, and she's eating by herself, and it's not a cure, but my daughter's doing amazing and far better than anybody would have expected her to, and that has inspired me to become active in our community and freed up my time, now that I'm not her 24-hour caregiver, to volunteer my time into the cannabis community and really become a voice and an activist for our children and for people that are seeking alternative methods. I teach them about there's different ways to consume cannabis. I'm not lighting my daughter's joint. So just, breaking the stigma and normalizing cannabis has really been my mission, and especially when it comes to the children. So that's me in a nutshell.
Hello, everyone. I'm Ashley Manta, the canisexual. If you're not familiar with canisexual, it is a word that I made up and then subsequently trademarked. I have a federal trademark on canisexual. And thank you.
That's awesome. It takes some work.
Thank you. And a lawyer.
Yeah.
And money.
And money. Oh man, money. That's a real thing. We'll talk about that. So a canisexual is anyone who mindfully and deliberately combines sex and cannabis to deepen intimacy and enhance pleasure, whether solo or partnered. Because I absolutely vital to have a healthy masturbatory practice, and cannabis can be a really pleasant addition to that. I've been a sex educator for about 10 years now, and I got my start doing very much like the opposite of what I'm doing now. I was doing sexual violence prevention. I was going out into schools. I was working as a rape crisis counselor and a victim advocate. And then I moved to California in 2013, and I experienced medical cannabis for the first time. I was living in Pennsylvania up to that point. And, you know, if you're in a prohibition state, you know that there are no strains. There's weed and there's no weed. Those are your options. And so to come to a place where I could walk into a dispensary and be like, I want to feel this, this, and this, and I don't want to feel that and that, and to have them be like, here you go. I was like, wow, this is awesome. And I had pain with penetration most of my life because of being a sexual assault survivor. And so moving here and finding a THC infused topical and using that for sex and finding the pleasure that I could feel when I didn't have to like grit my teeth for the first 2 minutes of sex, I was like, wow, this is a big deal. And like, no one's really talking about this from a sex ed perspective, like from a perspective of consent and embodiment and making sure that you're being really intentional in the choices that you're making, and like that you really do it on your terms, and how to do it. What kinds of strains make the most sense? The answer is it's different for everybody, by the way. Spoiler alert. But what products make the most sense? What method of consumption? You know, if you're trying to have a quickie, edible, probably not your best choice. If you have kids running around, maybe psychoactive method's not the best choice for you, if depending on how you handle that level of psychoactivity. And so I really got to get geeky. I've written over 120 articles on sex and cannabis via Leafly, Dope, and Culture magazines. Last month I was featured in 4 different cannabis publications, and I was on Viceland's show Slut Ever. That was really cool. I just did a photo shoot Thursday night with the London Times, which was really exciting. Like, I feel like I have this really awesome opportunity as someone who is combining 2 very interesting and taboo topics, that it's allowed me to get a lot of visibility in the cannabis space, which has been so cool and so weird for me. Like, I was totally an outcast in high school. I did not have friends. And so now, like, to be at a place like this and be surrounded by so many incredible people, like, this is a really healing experience for me. Yeah, it's good. So I'm having the best sex of my life, and I want to help you have the best sex of your life, because you deserve it. And whether that means with a partner or just with yourself, that's what I want to share with the world. So, yay, pleasure.
Hi, I'm Maggie. I'm from... It's because I'm a Reiki healer, so all technology fucks up around me. I live in Colorado. I'm from Tennessee. I've lived in Tennessee till I was 26 years old. Sierra, we need assistance. Nope, now it's working.
Oh, it's okay. It's okay. It's buzzing. I can just turn it down. Yeah. Just the volume.
Maybe it's because I'm so
There you go. Yeah, just, yeah. Go
Okay. Can you hear me? It doesn't sound like I'm on anymore.
Just yell.
Okay, well, you guys can hear me.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Okay, good. Okay, so I live in Colorado. I was raised to think that I was allergic to cannabis until I was 19 years old. So my friends would be like, "Oh, are you smoking?" And I was like, "No, I'm not going to. I'm not going to do that." I was raised in the Bible Belt in a very small town, and raised to think that anything that was hallucinogenic or psychoactive would basically make you have a seizure. And I was like, okay, whatever, I believed it. So when I was 19 and I smoked weed for the first time, it really opened me up to my spiritual path. And I really started questioning what I was being told and what I was believing. And I started working with the plant medicine, with cannabis and other plant medicines at the time, and it led me to Colorado. It led me to Reiki, which was something that, growing up, I was raised as a Jehovah's Witness. So that was just something to be talking about energy, to be talking about anything in the South. You're just they're like, you're going to hell. You need you're friends with the devil. You know him
With the devil.
with the devil. So I knew eventually I always knew I was going to make it out of Tennessee and do the work I needed to do. I started living in Colorado 2 years ago and working with a cannabis wedding event guide. That if you want to have a cannabis wedding, we would hook you up with all the vendors that you could ever want to know that would be like, yeah, we'll work with you. We love people who have cannabis weddings, which is a hard thing to find if you want to have consumption of cannabis, mindful consumption of cannabis at your wedding instead of your drunken aunt making a scene and ruining your wedding. So I started working with them, and it led me to understanding the legalities of events in Colorado, in California, and in Oregon, where you could legally have an event at that time with cannabis. That led me to being like, okay, I want to host my own events with weed. And I started doing spiritual events in Colorado, where you would come and you could integrate different kinds of metaphysical healing into your life. You would come in for about 2 hours, and you were required to leave everything at the door. You weren't allowed to bring any of your shit, any of your garbage in. It was 100% for you to disconnect and work with the plant at the time. I did 9 of them in Colorado and came to California and did 2 last year. That's where I met these wonderful ladies. Most of these wonderful ladies I met because I decided that cannabis changed my perspective 100%. I went from thinking that this plant was going to do fearful, awful things to me to realizing that it literally changed the whole way of what I perceived what was fearful. So that led me to working now. I work as a cannabis sommelier. I go into people's homes and do private dinners for them. We get to do corporate events where we pair the terpene profiles of cannabis with the flavonoid profiles of food to educate people on the spirits. It's called cultivating spirits, on the spirits of your food and the spirits of the plants that you consume, so that you're mindfully consuming and you're mindfully eating, to cultivate a way that you're very mindfully consuming mind, body, and soul. And that brought me to where I'm at now. And this is Mama Sailene.
I'm Saline. Most people know me as Mama Sailene. I'm a born and raised California girl. And so cannabis has been a big part of my life for a long time. As growing up in the 60s and 70s, well, really 70s, some 80s, I just really gravitated towards cannabis way more than alcohol. I just really never liked alcohol. And then when I was in my late teens, I was in a really serious car accident. And upon that car accident, I really learned through a respiratory therapist, because I broke a lot of bones in my body and I was there for a long time. So different health regimes would come through, respiratory therapists, doctors, whatever. And this one therapist basically was educating me because he knew that I like cannabis. He was like, well, this stuff that I'm pumping in your lungs so that you'll cough and we make sure you don't get pneumonia while you're laying on your back with, intraction because you broke your neck. This is actually the same thing as cannabis, what it does, this medicine that I'm pumping in your lungs. It's a bronchial dilator, and so is cannabis, and it just opens your lungs. That's why you cough when you have cannabis, and this will make you bring up all that shit so that you don't get pneumonia. And so that's what he was doing, and he explained it to me, and I was putting it together with that with medicine. And so throughout my entire recovery stage of that horrible car accident, where I pretty much broke every bone in my body. You'll see my scars, from head to toe, from my neck to my foot. I just had a really serious, a real friendship with cannabis. And I mostly used it throughout my whole recovery. I didn't really take pills or anything like that. And my parents weren't even consumers. We lived in a very, very, very Christian environment, but they lived such an unconditional, beautiful, accepting life that they saw that I had a relationship with it and I wasn't hurting anyone and that it was working for me. So they just kind of like turned the other way. It was like, whatever's working for you. So as a result, from a very young age of really needing it because it was my medicine, you grow very quickly and you learn to have really good friends who are good farmers, and you have friends like Ingrid De Silva who go to Humboldt State University, and you go to Humboldt and you meet really fun farmers who have really fire flower, and you become friends, and then they start bringing it down from Northern California to Southern California, and you kind of have a bulk of it. And so for you to be able to smoke it for free, you share it with your friends. And so I always had the fire flower. And mostly the beginning of my life, I was in hospitality, in front house of restaurant management and consulting. And in the late 90s, at this .com stage of the world, probably before a lot of you were born, what happened was there's this .com emergence, and I lived in Venice Beach. And I was running a very, very popular like coffee shop that allowed me to be sort of like the mayor of the community. And as I was segueing out of that job, I became very popular for having these incredible parties with really fine flower, and people wanting to get a ticket to my parties so that they could come and have really good food and really good smoke. And which led me to a place where I have always been an entrepreneur, and I started a event planning and catering business, and I started a weed delivery service, and I was growing them simultaneously and growing exponentially larger and larger and larger. And at one point I went to grow my legal catering business out and buy a turnkey business from a woman in town. And the deal went sour, and she embezzled a bunch of money, and so we had to go to court, and she was so angry that she had to be accountable for her actions that some of her friends had used my delivery service. So she thought by taking me down and calling the police and telling them that I had this giant operation with all these women around town delivering weed, that she would take me down. And so that's what she did. She gave them the number, she gave them the name and everything. And so the police of Santa Monica made a sting operation and busted me and my 4 drivers, and we all went to jail for the night. But it allowed me to meet the best lawyer in Los Angeles, the best pot lawyer, who is a born and raised California boy himself. And he said, girl, you do not have to be ashamed of what you do. You just make sure that you run the state way to be compliant, have your own collective run by the laws, and you too can be doing exactly what you're doing. You have been called the Florence Nightingale of cannabis by the judge here. You need to spread your love and mission all the day long. And so this gives you a better platform to be more passionate about what you love and what you're doing. So that gave me the platform to just go further. And from there, I started ground up again, started that delivery service, all me, all women run, all these time now, from the late 90s. From there, I was asked to host the program for Mary Jane called Smoke in the Kitchen, which kind of allowed me to come out of the green closet into the real world and be like, you're not going to be underground telling people that you have a delivery service anymore. Now you're coming out and you're really telling them what you do. So that's right before 64 passed, and so I was a big I formed a nonprofit group with 3 other women in LA to kind of join the cannabis community together, to unite us so that we'd have a united front when we passed 64 in the city, which has done a lot of good and bad, and who knows, it's still a shit show in Los Angeles where licensing is concerned.
All over the state.
All over the state. But I remain where I am. Today I'm a major advocate. I've gone to many countries, many states, advocating for this plant, trying to, like these women, end the stigma, change the face. Let's start those conversations that this is really medicine and that it changes lives and enhances the quality of our lives, and that we don't have to be shameful around it anymore. And that's my mission in life. And then I was asked to speak on a women's panel at Ganja Getaway in 2016. And I came and I fell in love, and before you know it, they were asking me to be a partner. And so today it's my, seriously, it's like culmination of my life's work of like event planning and catering and wanting retreats and to elevate the experience of cannabis and empowering women and having this platform to end the stigma and change the face around cannabis. It's all my dreams come true. And so thank you for making this all possible by showing up each and every time. So thank you so much.
Okay, so now the time is yours to ask any of us anything you want, personally, professionally. We're here to like really be open books and a resource for our community.